Hi, I'm Alan Perkins, and welcome to the Perkins Podcast. I'm working for Horns Digest currently, along with Chip Brown, who has 25 years of experience covering the Texas Longhorns. And today we're going to dive into a recap of the West Virginia-Texas game. But I'm going to start off with a couple different off-topic things just to mix up things a little bit. So to start off, I'm just going to start off with a quick segment that I'm going to call Alan's Anecdotes, and it's just quick little stories about me just so the listeners can get to know me better. So the topic for this week is anytime that I come home from the grocery store, I just have a feast. I'll just take one of everything and just go to town. I'm just so excited to have fresh food and variety in the house that I just can't help myself. I'll just eat like 10 different things in one sitting after I've put everything away in the fridge just because I'm so excited to have new food. So to me, there's just nothing worse than having to get really creative on the last few meals before the grocery store visit. So I'm wondering if any of y'all do that as well. Moving on to the Texas game, I'm going to title this portion of the podcast Stats You Must Heed Before You Proceed. So the UT defense in the first 5 games of the season, which Bedford was the coordinator for at least 3, if not 4 games, depending on the timeline and transition to Charlie Strong being the defensive coordinator. In those first 5 games, Texas allowed 39 points per game, 0.25 turnovers forced per game, so like 1/4 of one whole turnover, if you will. They allowed 14 touchdowns of 20 yards or more, and they only averaged 3 sacks per game. In the 4 games since, not including West Virginia, but in the 4 games before West Virginia, with Strong as the defensive coordinator, Texas only allowed 24 points per game, so that's a 15-point decrease. Averaged 2.5 turnovers per game that they forced, 2.4 to be exact, and they only allowed 2 TDs of 20 yards or more versus 14, and they had 4.8 sacks per game, and they are currently second in the nation. I'll have to check the stats for this week, but going into the West Virginia game, they were second in the nation only to Alabama in sacks. They had 34 sacks, and Alabama had 37 as a team. So that had increased a whole lot, obviously. And then the West Virginia game, Texas held West Virginia to 24 points, 4 turnovers. They forced 4 turnovers against West Virginia, 3 interceptions and a fumble. They had 2 sacks, and they had 1 touchdown allowed that was 20 yards or more. The Texas defense produced 3 interceptions in the third quarter alone against West Virginia. 2 were intercepted by Dylan Haynes, and 1 was intercepted by P.J. Locke. I also went back and charted the turnovers. So since the beginning of the OU game, since the beginning of the Red River rivalry or Red River shootout, including that game against Oklahoma, UT has forced 16 turnovers, yet they've only scored 24 points off of those 16 turnovers. So I went back and looked at how many hypothetical points UT could have scored off of some of those 16 turnovers, and the math is that if they scored a touchdown after all 16 turnovers, they would have come up with 112 points. If they scored a touchdown after half of the turnovers, 50% of the time, they would have had 56 points. And if they would have scored a touchdown on 1/4 of the turnovers, or 25% of the time, they would have had 28 points if they scored a touchdown in those situations. So they don't even have, at 24 points scored off those 16 turnovers, they haven't even scored touchdowns 25% of the time off of those turnovers. So I thought that was pretty abysmal. Foreman finished the first half against West Virginia with 20 carries for 114 yards, averaging 5.7 yards per carry, and he also had a fumble. But in the second half, he only finished with 53 yards, and so he finished with 167 yards total on 35 carries and averaged 4.8 yards per carry for the game. But in the second half, he only had 53 yards in the second half, and in the third quarter, he was held to 3.3 yards per carry, and in the fourth quarter, he was held to 3.8 yards per carry. So West Virginia really loaded up on the blitz, and that was the effect was twofold because it helped to get pressure on Buechele, and it also helped to stop the run. And against a true freshman quarterback like Buechele, it was an obviously effective tactic. This next portion I'm titling Conversion Immersion. With 12 minutes left in the game, West Virginia had converted 66% of their third downs. So at the end of the game, they only finished with a 52% third down conversion rate, whereas UT only had 29%. But even though West Virginia finished the game at 52% third down conversions, there was a point in the game in the fourth quarter when they were at 66% of converting their third downs offensively. So that clearly led to it was one of the reasons as to why West Virginia was successful early on in the game. 75% of their conversions for West Virginia were on third and long or third and medium. Another reason that Texas lost the game besides third down conversions was red zone efficiency. UT was 4 of 6 in the red zone, so there were 2 possessions where they didn't come away with any points. But out of those 6 trips, they only scored 20 points. So if they would have scored a touchdown on every single possession in the red zone, they could have had 42 points in a perfect world. Yet they only scored 20 points on 6 trips to the red zone. West Virginia, on the other hand, went 2 for 3 and had 14 points in the red zone. So 2 visits they scored touchdowns, and the third one they fumbled in the red zone. Brady Quinn made the statement on the Fox Sports 1 broadcast that Texas had the lowest conversion rate on third downs anytime that Texas was facing 3rd and 8 or more for the entire season at 18%. And I'm assuming it's the lowest in the FBS. He didn't state that, but that's my assumption. So according to Brady Quinn, that's Texas is worst in the country at converting 3rd and 8 or more at 18%. Another thing that I thought that was interesting was that West Virginia's first 4 drives resulted in 17 points and 1 turnover. But then from that point on, their last 10 drives of the game resulted in only 7 points, 3 turnovers, and 5 punts. And then the other possession that's not counted there is running out of time before the half when they just had the ball for receiving the kickoff after Texas had kicked the field goal. So the defense really did a good job of shoring things up after at first it looked like West Virginia was going to go up and down the field on them. University of Texas's drive, there was less of a pattern, but they went in the first quarter and the second quarter, they went field goal, fumble, punt, punt, punt. The next portion of drives went touchdown, field goal right before the half, a field goal blocked in the second and third quarter, and then the last chunk of drives is interception, touchdown, fumble, punt, turnover on downs, where the receiver, I think it was Colin Johnson maybe, it was definitely a freshman receiver, I'm pretty sure it was Colin Johnson. Texas had a turnover on downs where he caught it 1 yard short of the marker, he just ran the route a little bit short. And then they ran out of time. So again, that last chunk of drives was interception, touchdown, fumble, punt, turnover on downs, and then they ran out of time. And those occurred in the third and fourth quarter. So Texas obviously struggled to move the ball against the West Virginia defense, and that was kind of what was expected because West Virginia was coming in with the top-ranked defense in Big 12 play statistically in almost every single major category as far as how Big 12 teams ranked. So that wasn't necessarily shocking. But West Virginia definitely blitzed a lot, and they were very successful. Dorian Leonard had 7 catches and 125 yards, but he had 11 targets. And Colin Johnson had 7 catches, 68 yards, and he was targeted 12 times. So Buechele is clearly trying to get it to those 2 guys, among others. Buechele always does a good job of spreading it around, but I think they're trying to figure out a way to get their most athletic guys the ball in open space, and they're still working to improve that. A couple other things I wanted to discuss. Some fans were curious as to why Texas didn't go for a touchdown right before the half when they had the ball 4th and 1 from the 2-yard line. I think there was about 9 seconds left, and they had no timeouts left, if I remember correctly. So Texas had gone on this long drive that had consumed, I want to say, 6 minutes and 48 seconds, if I remember correctly, and it was like a 21-play drive. So the score was 17-10 in favor of West Virginia. So Charlie had the option of trying to score from the 2-yard line or kicking the field goal. And with not having any timeouts and only 9 seconds left, if you don't make it, obviously West Virginia's going to get the ball. You're not going to have enough time to run another play. So I didn't necessarily mind that decision. I really think either decision would have been defendable. If you're from the 2 and you have Deontay Foreman, the best running back in the country, in my opinion, and the way Texas was running the ball, Deontay Foreman had over 100 yards in the first half. I don't think it would have been crazy to try to go for it in that situation, but I also certainly understand that not taking the points there, you're cutting the lead to 17-13 if you kick the field goal, especially after a long 21-play, 6-minute and 48-second drive. To come away with nothing there, it's more than just should you go for it or not. It's also about how does it impact the team. If you go for it and don't make it, then West Virginia's going into the locker room with momentum and you're down 7. So I think it was the right decision to kick it there. I wouldn't argue with anyone that would say that Texas should have gone for it, but if I had to pick, I think kicking it was the right play. The other thing that was questioned was Texas had scored a touchdown in the third quarter and cut the lead to 24-19, and some people were wondering if Texas should have gone for 2 with the score 24-19, because that would have cut the lead to 3 if you score a 2-point conversion and make the score 24-21. And I don't think that's, again, I'll kind of take the same stance as I did on the last topic. I think that's a decent decision because in this game, it was obviously going to be a low-scoring game. You're already in the third quarter when you get to this point of the score 24-19, so it's very obvious that the game is not going to produce a ton of points. So I don't think it would have been crazy to go for 2, because you know that it's most likely you're not going to be getting a lot of chances to score the way West Virginia's defense was playing. But at the same time, if you don't make it and the score remains 24-19, and then West Virginia goes down and kicks a field goal, let's say, that makes the score 27-19, now you have to go for 2. You have to score a touchdown and go for 2 at some point later in the game just to tie. And under this hypothetical situation, you've also already run a 2-point play once and failed. And then you've already used your best 2-point play, and now you're going to have to go for 2 again, lacking confidence, already giving up using your best play on the previous 2-point try that failed. Again, all hypothetical. And then you're going to go for 2 again. So anytime there's a 4 or 3-point margin after an extra point, it's not necessarily a given that you should go for 2. If it was like late in the fourth quarter or something, okay, I'd understand. But the game was still in the third quarter, and I don't think it was crazy to kick the extra point there. I could see an argument going for 2, but I don't think it was a horrible decision just to kick the point and cut the score to 24-20 instead of going for 2 when you're down 24-19. So I'm going to jump now to a segment that I'd like to call Around the World in 80 Seconds. And so I'm just going to run through a couple stories that I found when searching through the internets. So a Wyoming bookstore bans Wi-Fi and electronics from a quote-unquote place for books. They just decided that the store just decided that they're going to deny customers the opportunity to use Wi-Fi. They're not going to offer it, and they're going to ban the use of electronic devices. And this story was run by the UPI, and it's actually run, all these stories that I'm going to go over are run by the UPI, and I think that's actually pretty cool, because reading's slightly important. So I thought that was an interesting little topic. Another thing that's horribly terrifying is that 2-headed sharks are being discovered in the ocean. So yay for that. Moving on. An Ohio mom closes her living room until Thanksgiving. So there's this story where a mother from Ohio has decided to close her entire living room, and she has closed it off before Thanksgiving. And it says that the mom's note that is hanging on the tape that's barring the entrance to the living room says that there are certain conditions in which access to the room will be granted. 1, you have showered and are dirt and odor-free from top to toe. You're wearing freshly laundered clothing. And if permission is granted, no foods or drinks are permitted at this time. And then mom can be referred to as any of these titles. Mom, payer of the bills, chauffeur, queen of the castle, person ruining your life, bossy bleep in charge, and whatever works for you. And then also the dogs have apparently been heeding this advice as well, staying out of the living room, even though there's nothing really barring them there. They're just respecting the physical, imaginary boundary that exists. So, I'm Alan Perkins. Thanks for listening to the Perkins Podcast, and I appreciate you coming by to listen. And I hope you all have a fantastic day. And again, check out Horns Digest, where yours truly is contributing stories daily, along with Chip Brown, who has 25 years of experience covering UT athletics. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. Bye.